Before we start, this video contains mentions of chronic illness, seizures, academic misconduct allegations, and emotional distress. Please take care when watching. Hey everyone, welcome back, or welcome in if you're new. Today I am going to be talking about my university experience. But before we start, I do want to make something really clear. I will not be naming the university or the staff. This isn't a witch hunt, this is literally just my experience. I know it's not the same as everyone's. Some people would have had a great time at uni and got the support they needed, found the community they needed, but unfortunately I did not. And I think it's important to talk about what happens when you're the person the system doesn't know how to support. So yeah, let's start from the beginning and talk about year one. So picture this, it's 2022 and I've just started uni as of September. I'm excited, exhausted, slightly terrified, but fully ready to be the girl with the sketchbook and an iced coffee. But what people didn't see was that I arrived already burnt out. Because here's the thing, I've been having seizure-like episodes since I was 12. I'm not fully diagnosed, I've been waiting for a diagnosis for the past 5 years. Back when I was 12, they were very rare, scary but very manageable. But then, as of 2020, they got a lot worse. I was later diagnosed with anemia, which explained why I was constantly dizzy, exhausted, and one light breeze away from collapsing in the fruit aisle of Tesco or somewhere, I don't know. On top of that, I have a really weird problem with my leg. I'm not sure what causes it, but it tenses up, goes completely dead weight, and really hurts to walk on. Really cute, really adds to everything. But of course, me being me in true main character fashion, I decided to commute to uni almost 2 hours there and back every single day. Bus strikes, random cancellation, ghost buses that simply never arrived, all while managing a body that had the reliability of a wet tissue. But somehow I tried my best to make it work, but on the days where I had to leave early or couldn't come in, that's when the complaints started rolling in. You're not taking this seriously, why do you keep leaving? Other students manage just fine. And then, of course, one that lives rent-free in my brain is, I don't know why you even bothered coming to uni. Now for some context, during A-levels my attendance was about 50 to 40% because of the illness. But back then my tutors knew me, they saw I was still keeping up, keeping my grades up. They told the university in advance that I'm reliable, but despite my attendance I still get the work done and I still achieve high grades, and that I do have a different way of working. But unfortunately the university didn't care. Early in the year we were told to start a sketchbook, which sounds cool and easy enough, except what they really meant was start a sketchbook with invisible rules we will only reveal once you've done it wrong. I handed in mine, neat, structured and clear like I'd done in A-level. Since I got an A star I thought it was the right thing to do. The feedback I received was that it looks like a school project, that I'm not a child anymore, and that this isn't how we do things here. But no one had explained to me what they expected. They laughed when I got it wrong and told me what to do when it was too late. Now let's talk about digital art, which, spoiler alert, was my lifeline. Originally I worked across mediums, graphite, paint, watercolour, photography, video, literally anything. But because of my seizure and leg issues, digital for me was more accessible and safer. If I collapsed mid-sketch, I knew I wouldn't risk ruining the piece by doing digital because I could undo, save, adjust things later on if it desperately needed it. It gave me sort of that control that I didn't really have with other mediums. But what I got in return from the lecturers was, that's not real art, it looks AI generated, and you didn't make this, did you? Even when they watched me draw it in person, live, even when I had the layer files, the process time lapses, the timestamps, apparently none of that counted, because if it wasn't done with paint on your face and ink-stained fingers, it didn't feel authentic. And then the essays came, which I was not expecting. We were given a referencing guide, which I followed exactly. Considering this was my first time doing referencing, I didn't get much help, but I did try my best. Unfortunately, they accused me of plagiarism, flagged my work, and capped my grades, opening an investigation for following their own format. I tried to explain and show receipts, but they didn't care. Once the system decided I was suspicious, there was no undo button. By the end of year one, I was really tired, but not just from the illness. I was tired of constantly defending my body and trying to prove that my art was mine. I was tired of being treated like a burden. They didn't see me dragging myself for a 2-hour commute with a dead leg or sketch in between episodes. They just saw someone not showing up enough and took that for granted. I showed up every single time I could, and if that isn't dedication, then I don't know what is. Year 2 actually started a bit better. I wasn't expecting miracles, but I was cautiously optimistic. I had a new art tutor who, to their credit, was lovely, supportive and very present. They knew what they were doing, and they really helped me build my portfolio and gave so much honest, constructive feedback. They didn't treat me like I was radioactive. I give them a 10 out of 10 with no notes. For the first time in the whole course, it felt like maybe I could breathe, but of course uni wasn't going to let me have that for too long, because then came liberal learning, which I'm calling to hide the school's identity. Now listen, my work has always been feminist. I mean, one look at my work, you can tell. My entire practice is rooted in identity, memory, the body, all good personal stuff. So I'm not against politics in art, not at all. I completely get it. I get art is political, existing is political. But year 2 introduced this mandatory written module that felt less like learn about different perspectives and more like here's one perspective and you have to agree with it or else. For some of the sessions I did not agree, specifically one focused on sex work and presented a particular political stance that I respectfully did not agree with. I voiced that and I asked questions, bringing in my own research, and the classroom descended into absolute chaos. No one wanted a conversation, they wanted compliance. I was belittled, interrupted, told I didn't understand, and I sort of just sat there thinking, why am I being punished for critical thinking in a university? Isn't that what we're meant to be doing here? For this module I had to do an essay, and of course, just like in year 1, I submitted my essay and they were flagged again. Same process, same stress, no apology, no actual helpful support, just accusations and silence. At this point I started to feel like I had a target on my back. I wasn't cheating or cutting corners, I was literally doing what I was asked and still being treated like I was going to game the system or something. It was really genuinely exhausting. The only saving grace for that year was the studio work. Like I said, I had an art lecturer who actually got it. They saw me and took the time to look at my work. For once I was being told it wasn't AI. For once I wasn't accused of faking things. And I started to feel like an artist again, not just a box someone needed to tick for admin purposes. It was the first time in the whole course I felt like I might actually finish, like I had something proper to show, and something I completely believed in, and that meant everything to me. Year 2 wasn't easy, don't get me wrong. There were still accusations and pressures and the daily exhaustion of being a somewhat disabled student in a system that didn't really accommodate for it, despite being one of the most diverse schools, by the way. But at least I had one lecturer who saw me and made a difference. However, that all fell apart in year 3. Year 3 was when everything kind of collapsed, and I mean literally everything. My mental health, friendships, my belief that I could actually finish the degree as a whole. It was meant to be the final big project. Your final project, your final dissertation, your chance to really go out with a bang. Instead, I feel like I went out in fragments, which is horrible to admit. For me, the year started with one huge blow which probably affected my mental health for the entire year, but my nan passed away. And if you've seen any of me on social media, then you'll know that she was like the main reason that I was even at this uni after all the shit I went through. She believed in me and she pushed me through the crap in year 1 and 2, and she really was the one cheering me on when I wanted to drop out every week. So when I lost that, it was really difficult. But uni didn't stop, uni didn't pause, uni didn't ask if I was okay. And as if grief wasn't enough, I then lost all my friends a few months later. Or more accurately, they lost me. They were fake, two-faced, cold people I thought who were in my corner for 10 years, but they turned against me and vanished altogether, I guess. But let's be real, when you're grieving and trying to make art through brain fog and panic, that kind of betrayal hits different. I did not have the energy to fight it, so I did just let them go. So there I was, back in the studio alone and once again under fire, because I had the same staff I had in first year. They did not believe in my work, despite watching me draw, literally seeing it happen in front of them. I was once again being accused of AI, faking my pieces and being too polished, as if being competent was suspicious. And then came the interim show. I created a large fabric piece, Cattle. I'm sure if you know me, you've seen that piece. It really meant something to me. Please bear in mind I'm 5 foot and the walls are like 7 foot. I was physically struggling, but somehow still found the strength to carry it in and pin it up on the wall Carefully, by hand, I stitched the seams to make sure it didn't fray, everything. But a lecturer walked over, looked at it and tore it off the wall. With no warning, no real discussion, just grabbed it and ripped, and the seams I'd spent almost 2 hours sewing was destroyed. I was on the verge of a full breakdown, and it was horrible, but their reasoning was it wasn't taught enough. So yeah, year 3 wasn't the triumphant return I hoped for. I was barely holding it together, but we're not done. Year 3 does indeed continue. Despite everything, I still wanted to do really well, and it was at the time of doing my dissertation that I knew I should just throw myself into it. I chose a topic that meant something to me, and that was authenticity in digital art and perception. For me, it was personal, but also very academic and layered. I spent 4 months working on it, through tears and grief and everything. I made sure I used quotes and tracked my sources and had full document history, and I was proud of it, and I thought hopefully, this would be the first time that I could actually submit an essay and do well. Then I get an email. Your work has been flagged as 50% AI generated. Exactly 50, as if the AI had just stopped to go on a tea break randomly. I can't explain what the moment felt like. It was like someone had just punched me in the stomach and all the air had come out my lungs. I knew it wasn't AI. I wrote every last word. I had the notes, the drafts, the structure, the blooming calls I had with my supervisor, but suddenly none of that mattered. To them it was suspicious because, I don't know, I was completely unravelling at this point. I had a full-on breakdown at this point, and I called them. I asked them to read it properly. I said I have been grieving, I've worked so hard and I felt like it was really unfair. And all they said was, we don't know what to do. Then they laughed at my face. And they fully laughed and just blamed the AI. I hung up because I couldn't take being laughed at while I felt that way. My mum, who saw the state I was in, called them herself, and they told her something that still really makes my blood boil. They said they didn't have the time or mental capacity to read or mark everyone's work properly, so they ran it through AI instead. An AI checker for a student who had already been accused, hurt and exhausted. They used an automated tool that they know is inaccurate and nearly destroyed 4 months of work because of it. Luckily, I have the mum I do. She pushed and they did remove the AI flag. But then, plot twist, they changed the reason, which they're not allowed to do. I can't remember what rule it comes under in their academic misconduct sessions. There is something, I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head, but it'll probably pop up on screen if I find it. But they changed the reason to say that my referencing was bad and that I didn't use quotes. What are these then? They told me that they'd mark it fairly again, said they'd call me to go through it with support. Guess what? They never did. No call, no feedback, no follow-up that they promised. In the end, they capped my grade at 40 after 4 months of hard work and complete grief. 40 was all I received. That was sort of the moment I stopped trusting them entirely. I wasn't just disappointed anymore. I had pushed through every episode, every pain flare, every breakdown to write something honest, and they discarded it like it was nothing. They made me personally feel like I was nothing. But with that being said, the final project was done. It was submitted, and I should have felt relieved, right? Wrong. Because next came the collection day, the day we gathered our work for the final exhibition. I showed up ready, nervous, but really proud, only to find that my work had been damaged. The large fabric piece I wanted to put up in the degree show, the one I had poured literally almost 70 hours into, was screwed up and chucked in the box in a horrible crumpled up ball, just stuffed in on top of my now bent metallic piece. And I sort of stood there just holding it in my hands, wondering, is this really what they think of me and my work? I was absolutely devastated. For the show, the big moment, the degree show, I did have a plan for this piece, and where I wanted it, I wanted a narrow corridor leading into a wider space, so it was intimate and sort of claustrophobic. I had even submitted this plan early, had my measurements, was ready to paint and prep. Every other student got what they requested, they got the space they wanted, but me, I was laughed at and said, well, everyone else had the choice but you because we thought it would be better over here. I thought it was fine, that I'll completely adapt. As long as the walls were built, I could make it work. Spoiler, the walls weren't built. I showed up after travelling through road closures, delays and buses that literally, at this point, hate my existence. only to find that my exhibition space was being used as a storage cupboard. There was no walls, no lighting, just junk literally everywhere. And when I asked what was happening with it, they just told me to help other people first and wait for the technicians. Mind you, I was already behind because I was out of town during the first 2 painting days, but I told them in advance I had 3 full days to work. They had emailed me to complain that I wasn't there, so I half expected the walls to already be up. On Thursday, I got an email saying don't bother come in, the walls won't be ready until Friday, leaving me with 1 day left to paint. So Friday hits, walls are up, I paint them white because the room was pitch black, and white reflects better. I finish the structure, I asked classmates to help with the floor as I had to leave early to get the bus. I had done everything I could. Thank you to those who did do the floor, by the way, it's so appreciated. Then Monday comes. My lecturer doesn't even pull me off to the side, it's in front of everyone, saying that I left other students to clean up my dirty work. I didn't leave a mess. I finished the walls and the floor was sorted, but nope, apparently I'd committed a crime by painting the walls white. So what do? They make me stay late until 6 p.m. to repaint everything black again. I had to call home, my mum was in the hospital, I didn't get home until nearly 9 p.m. And then they emailed me again. You did a bad job repainting. I was exhausted, I was in pain, I was running on paint fumes at this point. They couldn't have given me an ounce of grace. Bear in mind I had less than a week to get this done before we had to install the work, whereas everyone else had the full 2 weeks. I really tried. I showed up when my body didn't want to move, I made work when my brain was absolutely shattering. I followed their rules, adapted to the chaos, swallowed their insults, and at the very end they treated my art, my personal, honest work, like trash. They made me repaint something I'd just finished, they gave me no time, no tools, no support. They made me feel like I wasn't even a student anymore, just an inconvenience. But I still finished, I still got the work up, and I still graduated because I refused to let them take that from me too. By now, you know that my exhibition space was set up late. The walls were thrown together really badly, by the way, screws were all over the floor. The paint was redone in a rush and it did look patchy, I'm not going to lie, but I had literally less than a day to get it done. The fabric work had been manhandled like it was a rag in a cleaning closet, but I made it happen. I arranged it, lit it, hung the work, and then waited. And waited. And waited, but guess what? No one came. My space was so far out of the main route that barely anyone even knew it existed. It was tucked behind everything, off the path, like a little forgotten hallway. People came to the show, a lot of people did, just not directly to me. I stood there watching them bypass the corner. I started to wonder if I was even on the map. And honestly, it felt so anticlimactic because I had just spent 3 years clawing my way through hell to not have my work even recognised. But then something changed. Suddenly people started arriving, peeking in, asking questions, saying, oh, I didn't realise this was here, because I had just been shortlisted for a prize. Now don't get me wrong, that should have felt amazing, the validation, recognition, potential celebration, but it didn't. It really felt like pity, like someone had gone, oh, she's been through a lot, let's give her something to soften the blow. Maybe that's not true, maybe they genuinely liked my work, but after everything that year, I felt tolerated at most. People only cared once there was a label next to my name, not when I was struggling, not when I was trying to explain why my body made me work differently, not when my art was dismissed as too clean or too old-fashioned looking or too AI looking. Only once I had a little gold star next to my name did I become properly visible. And the wild part is I still graduated with a first-class honours. After everything, I still got a first, and I wish I could say that made everything feel better, but it doesn't, because the degree never saw me and the system never believed in me. They just let me pass through it until it was over. So that was sort of the show, that big final moment. My work got noticed, but not before being ignored. I got shortlisted, but not before being hidden. I got a first, but not before being broken. There's this idea that once you graduate, you're supposed to feel proud and accomplished and respected, but I didn't feel any of those things. I just felt really tired. I got the degree, I got the fake scroll because they don't give you the real thing on the graduation day. I got the words first class honours printed on paper, and now I'm sitting here wondering what was it for, because I don't feel triumphant. I feel financially, emotionally and physically wrecked. And I want to talk about that, honestly. I want to talk about what no one tells you, or what no one prepares you for, is the aftermath. First things first is the money. Let's be real, university is expensive. It's 27 grand in tuition alone. More if you count transport, materials, and literally just surviving for food and stuff. And for what? To teach yourself. Because that's the truth. Most degrees, especially in art, it's self-taught. Lecturers were very vague. Feedback was very inconsistent. and you're expected to just know or figure it out. You literally pay 30 grand to be gaslit by a building that doesn't even have working lights in half the studios. And don't even get me started on the lecturers. I wish I could say it was a mixed bag, but honestly, some of them are the worst people I've ever met in my life. They're dismissive, they're so condescending, and they're so cruel, even just subtly. I was laughed at while I was upset. I was told my work was fake. I was told my effort wasn't enough, even when I had to drag my own leg across the floor to get to class. They didn't support me. They tolerated me when it was convenient. And now I've graduated. I'm out, I'm relieved, don't get me wrong, I'm so relieved, but now I have literally no idea what to do next because they offered no guidance or resources. There's no, here's how to turn this into a career. They never told us how to apply for residencies or how to build a professional portfolio, how to price our work, pitch to galleries, or survive as an artist. There's no roadmap, just a goodbye, to leave the building with your degree and your trauma and no one ever looks back. Right now I'm really stuck, I'm burnt out, I feel like I've crawled out of a house fire. I don't know what the next step is, and that's really terrifying for me. I did everything right, I passed, I worked, I survived, and I still feel completely lost. I'm making this video not to end on a low note, but to be real. Art school sold me a dream and I came out ruined. I'm proud of what I made, don't get me wrong, but I really wish someone had warned me. I wish someone had told me you might not come out the same person you went in as, and no one's going to help you figure out what happens next. But maybe that is what it is, you know? Maybe this talking to you is the start of figuring it out. I know this has been heavy, but it's also been honest, and I hope it helps someone feel a little less alone. And if you're also going through this, if you're a current student or you've just graduated and completely feel lost as well, maybe I could open up a Q&A in the comments. I'd love to make a video answering your questions about university and what to expect, the workload, what it's like doing dissertations, everything. I'll answer as many as I can in a future video if you do ask, because clearly the uni wasn't giving us any answers, so maybe we can start giving them to each other. This isn't the end, but it is a start to helping other people. Before you head off, if you found any part of the story meaningful and you want to support what I do beyond the screen, I'm currently trying to hit 100 sales this month so I can release my debut book, Mirrorbox, a psychological horror project I've poured my entire soul into the past year. Right now I'm at 3 out of 100 sales, so whether it's a bookmark, a keyring, a digital print, or just sharing the link, every little bit helps. You can find it all on my shop, artofgeorgina.com. Thank you for listening, and thank you for being here.